This week's study hall is coming to you from a gross alleyway that's filled with ninjas. But you can't see them because they're ninjas. Welcome back to another episode of Max Scoville's Study Hall. I am your host and pop culture Sherpa, Max Scoville, and Study Hall is the show where I take a video game or video games that you may or may not be interested in, and I run down a pile of other movies, books, cartoons, music, art, etc. that I might feel would be up your alley. Get it? Now today I'm going to try something new. I'm not going to talk about one game in particular, but something that's a big part of video game culture. Stupid, goofy-ass ninjas. What inspired this terrible idea? Well, when I was at E3 earlier this month, I got to play two games that featured them very heavily. The first was Yaiba Ninja Gaiden Z, which is the ridiculous Western reboot of what's probably the longest-running video game ninja franchise, which puts players in control of a foul-mouthed ninja who's been reanimated as a cyborg after being slain by Ninja Gaiden's regular hero, Ryo Hayabusa. I saw like 10 minutes of the game, and it was some of the rudest and stupidest silly video game bullshit I saw at E3 this year, and I couldn't be happier about it. And then shortly after that, I saw something even more ridiculous and stupid. I checked out the new Shadow Warrior, which is the resurrection of the 1997 3D Realms first-person shooter starring Duke Nukem's racially insensitive Asian counterpart, Lo Wang. The new Shadow Warrior is also full of swearing and dumbass ninja violence, and I personally am stoked. Now, I'm sure right now some history buff is out there shifting uncomfortably in his chair, about to type a fussy comment about the historical inaccuracy of stupid video game ninjas. But guess what? Historically accurate ninjas never kidnapped the president like they did in Bad Dudes, they never breathed fire or froze people like the ones in Mortal Kombat, and they never put on sombreros and cut cars in half like in Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. So shut up, imaginary history buff. Nobody wants realistic ninjas. Except for probably some people, but not today, guys. Like a lot of kids who grew up in the 90s, I always just kind of accepted ninjas as a totally normal part of cartoon, video game, and action movie culture, but it wasn't always the case. In fact, a lot of stupid ninja pop culture I was exposed to was probably inspired by when ninjas first blew up in the early 80s. That was a bit before my time, so I consulted my distinguished colleague, Headmaster Adam Sessler, about what his first memorable exposure to ninjas was. He pointed me in the direction of Enter the Ninja. Now, this is a very, very campy action movie, so to give you a sense of what type of a film this is, I'd like your attention for a complete 15 seconds while I show you what's possibly the greatest death scene in cinema history. Oh yes, it's that sort of a film. Now, another popular ninja franchise of the 80s was American Ninja, of which there I think are 5 movies total, and they're all stupid as hell. Check out this idiotic fight scene from Enter the Ninja 2, The Confrontation, where Michael Dudikoff and Steve James beat up a bunch of ninjas on a beach. It's all the sweaty interracial homoeroticisms of the Rocky III training montage, but now it's got ninjas. Cool. Now, these are just a few of the terrible ninja-related movies of the 80s. There's like an ocean of them out there to choose from, and while it's not strictly about ninjas, one movie I have to recommend is Showdown in Little Tokyo. It's a martial arts buddy cop movie that stars Dolph Lundgren of Rocky IV fame and Brandon Lee, Bruce Lee's son, and it's a bit like Big Trouble in Little China's sexier but less popular cousin. There's a sex scene with Tia Carrere that would be great if not for the fact that Dolph Lundgren's in it too, so it's just terrifying. Now, while it's easy to blame Americans for making ninjas stupid, they weren't the only ones who were getting weird with them in the 80s and 90s. Japan definitely took a few liberties themselves. So let's talk about some cool Japanese stuff. If you were into anime at all in the mid-90s, or as it was called back then, Japanimation, then you've probably heard of Ninja Scroll. It hung out in the creepy back corner of comic shops and video stores. It was alongside Ghost in the Shell, Akira, and Vampire Hunter D, and it's chock full of all of the slick, over-the-top action that gross little 5th graders like me got totally excited about in 1997. Ninja Scroll is full of weird shit like naked chicks turning into snake demons and dudes screaming and jumping in the air. And don't get me wrong, I love and respect animation as an art form, but goddamn if sometimes I just want to watch something that's really colorful and ultra-violent. Another great over-the-top anime about ninjas that's slightly less well-known is The Dagger of Kamui. I first saw a heavily censored and horribly dubbed version that was released in 1987 as a children's movie called Revenge of the Ninja Warrior. The uncut version, however, is awesome. It's based on a series of novels and was directed by Rintaro, who you might know for his work on Lupin III and Captain Harlock. In addition to movies and anime, ninjas of course have shown up in plenty of comics, so let's talk about some comics. So I could easily devote an entire episode to them, but what kind of a monster would I be if I was talking about stupid, dumbass, goofy ninjas and I didn't even bring up the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? The heroes in the half-shell are more famous for their cartoon and movie appearances, but they first showed up in a 1984 comic by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, which was much darker than their later interpretations. Originally, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were sort of a parody of what was popular in comics at the time. In the Marvel Universe, the New Mutants had just started up, following a group of teenage understudies to the Uncanny X-Men, and meanwhile Daredevil had found himself facing off against the Hand, a group of ninjas that were running around causing mayhem in New York City. Eastman and Laird apparently thought the idea of a bunch of ninjas running around New York was either stupid or cool or maybe both, but they borrowed the idea, and the Hand became the Foot Clan. Now, the creator of the Hand was Frank Miller, who introduced Daredevil to his tragic ninja love interest Elektra, who was famously killed off and then resurrected, and then given a fate worse than death with that horrible Jennifer Garner movie. Following Daredevil, Frank Miller's first original project was his graphic novel Ronin, which is more about samurais than ninjas, but which was clearly an inspiration for the Ninja Turtles, so it gets a pass. I mean, look at the covers. Frank Miller gets a ton of love for Sin City and his work on Batman and Daredevil, but I think Ronin is one of his more interesting comics. It's about a masterless samurai who somehow gets transported to the distant future because of like demons or 3D printed nanotechnology or something, and the art and story is great, and it feels like a cross between Lone Wolf and Cub and Alien 3, kind of? Even though it's not technically about stupid, goofy ninjas, I will give it a pass because without it, we might not have had the Ninja Turtles. Anyway, this is by no means a definitive list. If you want that, go check out Ninjas in Popular Culture on Wikipedia. That is a big page. What are your guys' favorite ninjas in pop culture? Let me know in the comments. Unless it's Naruto. Sorry guys, I'm not into Naruto. You can't run around in an orange gi and say you're a ninja. Orange is the least sneaky color ever. That's why they make traffic cones orange. Naruto sucks. Anyway, another game I checked out at E3 was Titanfall, and everybody seems pretty stoked about that. And oh look, Pacific Rim drops next week too. If I didn't know any better, I would say giant robots were making a comeback. So let's talk about them. Until next time, I'm Max Scoville. Ninja vanish.